I don't think.
Objection, Your Honor.
Speculation. Yeah, speculation.
Overruled. Thank you. Please continue.
It would be people who would misuse ecstasy without cocaine, are prone to agitation, suspicion, jealousy, violence. What we're seeing there would be very consistent with that presentation.
Thank you. Michelle, can you now bring up 18 to 30?
I'm
30, I
prone to
guess.
agitation.
And
Therefore, I
that's
must
already been
use
admitted into
MDMA.
evidence as well,
Right.
Your Honor. I'd ask that it be published.
I mean, some of
And
this
what,
is
if any,
good
evidence
if I believed him at
does
all.
this correlate with behavior indicative of IPV perpetration?
Again, this is intimidation, this is
No,
psychological.
intention
abuse.
How do you know
You're
that?
solely trying
Yeah,
to emotionally.
no.
Objection, Your Honor. Can we be heard?
You can't know it's intimidation.
Right.
No, you don't know that.
How in the heck is half of this stuff redirect?
It's not. Please tell us everything that the other psychiatrist said. Also, please tell us about her credentials, which incidentally, they're all hearsay to you. How do you know she's a professor? How do you know that she has these credentials? I mean, you don't, how do you know that?
Right.
Call her if you want
Yeah.
her opinion.
Yeah.
Call her as a witness.
Mm-hmm.
Please tell us how great she is. Please tell us all the things she said.
I don't know, man. He must beat his wife because he eats candy in court is quite the-
Yes, he's candy.
Yeah.
Please tell us how that's.
He's therefore a
dis-
narcissist?
Dr. Spiegel, if you,
Narcissist.
I've been
if
eating
you can
chicken this whole
answer the
time.
question,
Does that make me a
what,
narcissist?
if any
Legally,
evidence
right?
is
You
this
don't want us to answer that, Alita.
correlating to the risk factors for IPV perpetrators?
Again, I think the violence comes through. with the risk
Objection,
factor.
Your Honor.
Just the evidence
strike.
of risk factors,
All
if you
right.
can.
The evidence of risk factor would be accepting a more than average degree of violence, as well as psychological abuse.
Okay. Are you aware of any record evidence of Ms. Heard writing on walls, mirrors, countertops, or painting canvases?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. You can take that down now. Now, you were also asked about Seroquel and some of the other prescription medications. Did you, during the course of your review of evidence, see the lists of medications that Mr. Depp was on at one point?
Yes, I read that list.
Michelle, I'm going to ask you to bring up Defendant's Exhibit 301. And Dr. Spiegel, it's not into evidence yet. I'm going to ask you to take a look at this. Is this one of the documents that you had that reflected the amount of medication that Mr. Depp was on as of October 26, 2014?
Yes.
Okay. And this was an email from Debbie Lloyd to Dr. Blaustein, his treating psychiatrist, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jury that we've got Seroquel 50 mg? Can you just tell,
Objection, hearsay.
can you just tell the, I haven't finished asking the question yet.
Oh,
So-
Lord.
Let's approach.
Okay.
Okay. Kim Steinberg says, hello from Sweden. Wouldn't it be easier for AH to claim mild abuse compared to the extreme stories in her testimony? Feels like she always tries to take everything one step further than JD. Yeah, my impression is that she's been telling the story for so long that every time she's exaggerated a little bit and then she can't go back on it after so many years of exaggerating more and more. So that's how she has ended up here, is my impression. Alita, when can we expect the barrister on here? Next week for sure. We're planning on having him on so we can talk about the UK case. Black belt barrister is the one particularly. Myra M, any thoughts on reviewing historical trials like the Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle from the 1920s? He was an actor who was wrongly accused of murder. Yes, I'm definitely thinking about that for sure. And not specifically that case, but other cases, reviewing some direct and cross examination, some portions of trials that have been filmed in the courtroom as well.
Is that Whitney?
Michelle, can you scroll up just so I can see all of them at the same
That's
time?
what I heard, was that she was sitting with the
Thank
legal
you.
team, which I don't
So,
She's
understand how
right
that's
behind the
proper.
lane. She's right behind
Yeah.
the lane.
Yes.
Siegel, if someone was taking 50 milligrams
Milligrams,
of
Megapints.
Seroquel,
Megapints.
Who's going to say
25
megapint?
milligrams of Seroquel,
Millibytes.
and 50 milligrams of Seroquel and 50
Where's
all in
millibytes
one
when we need her?
day. How
Team
would that
Tennessee,
impact
thank you
them?
again.
So obviously this is not for sleep because I'm presuming you're not wanting to sleep in the morning, noon, and from 4 to 6, although you're sleeping at night. What I would
Right.
say is he's using it for one purpose, as I say, with substance use disorder. They're using it to calm down. They're using it just as a down and relax. And given that you're taking 45 milligrams of Adderall a day to stay awake, and that's more than the prescribed for adults and children, for that matter. The combination makes very little sense at all to me.
And if a
Pharmacolo-
person was taking 300 milligrams of Neurotin, I'm going to pronounce that wrong again.
Neurontin.
4 times a day and 600 later in the day, how would that impact?
Again,
person.
you're looking at medications that are there solely for a substance use disorder patient to get them up and to calm them down. That's all this regimen is about. Gabapentin doesn't have a psychiatric indication other than, actually doesn't have psychiatric indication, although it does calm you down. And it, as I may have intimated before, similar to Adderall, gabapentin is also abusable. Cimetidine, Seroquel is also abusable. So you're getting these kind of unusually calming effects from these medicines, while at the same time getting what's called a super therapeutic dose or an excessive amount of Adderall. And for the record book, adults are only indicated with Adderall for the extended release, not the immediate release preparation. And why that's relevant is the immediate release preparation is more abusable. You get more high quicker. The extended release goes out throughout the day. The immediate release gets you up right away and then down. Now, in ADHD, this medicine is very effective. But from what this is being used for, clearly based on the combination, no.
All right. Do addicts lie?
Yes.
What kind of a question is that?
Don't even.
Now, you were asked
And he
just
about
said yes?
Mr. Depp passing out.
Do people
you
lie?
recall reading
Do women lie?
testimony of Mr. Depp
Yes. Often.
passing out in the bathroom in his vomit?
Yes.
Okay.
Can
Does that help refresh your recollection of what you
Yes.
recall?
I also,
All right.
I mean, for the record book, I don't think that falling asleep with ice cream on you is a
Objection beyond the scope of the question.
Keep going.
I don't think taking Seroquel at night and falling asleep with ice cream on you is not what Seroquel is indicated for. It's not meant to put you out in a state where you don't even be able to stay awake to put ice cream away.
All right. Michelle, if you can pull up defendants 1090.
Such a weird.
I feel like
Weird.
falling
It's already
asleep with
in the
ice cream
evidence.
dripping on me is something I could do without any medication.
Yes. Yes.
Start with the
Publish
real
that to
facts.
jury,
Feel,
Your Honor.
feel like it's within the range of just normal.
Dr. Spiegel, does this look like, I mean, would this be evidence correlating with behaviors consistent with IPV perpetrator risk factors?
This would be correlated a person who is completely knocked out, and it's usually only one way someone gets knocked out
What?
that badly, and that's with pharmacological assistance, whether it be legal or illegal. They make it to the bed. They don't sleep with their head on a game box in a
This is such
Furniture.
a weasel.
that doesn't happen to people who sleep.
A what?
No matter how tired you are. No matter how tired. I've been a resident in the past, and I was up for 40, 45 hours.
Objection beyond the scope.
I love how he made it about himself.
Narcissistic.
I have
All
narcissistic
right.
questions, doctor.
Michelle, can you pull
Yeah.
up 1095?
I
please?
make it to my bed. I never thought the floor looked attractive to me.
He didn't even get to answer the question, which is that picture indicative of IPV?
My uncle sleeps
I
on
was
the
waiting
floor.
for him
I
to
just
tie
want
all those
you to
together.
know this.
I'm going to ask you the same question, Dr. Spiegel. What, if anything, does this indicate relating
I'm
to
just going to
risk
note that I
factors for
slept on the
IPV
floor
perpetrators?
outside the courthouse.
Again, colloquially.
So I
passed
guess
out, and
my wife should be
very few
worried,
ways
according
get
to this
like
guy.
that without pharmacological
Did you eat
assistance,
candy at the same time, Ian?
legal or illegal.
I may have eaten some candy.
And then let's pull up 1094, please, Michelle.
I guess I'm history's greatest monster.
Defense, and that's also been admitted.
I'm going to
Clearly.
write an intervention letter starting now.
And now we have the ice cream picture. And what, if any, indication does this have?
Probably
Not
so,
enough.
I think.
Objection Speculation, no
stupid.
foundation.
What if any
Objection, stupid.
correlation, what if any evidence does this indicate correlative with the risk factors for IPV?
Again,
You thought it was vomit
If
when
you're
you
looking at
testified.
this
Right.
photo and you think it's a risk factor for IPV,
intimate partner
I
violence.
don't know what to tell you.
Objection,
You are a
move to
subject.
strike.
All right, sustained. I'll strike it from the record. Next question.
Oh, I didn't mean from the record. I mean, I actually just want to hit it.
We'll just move on.
Okay.
You were asked about earpieces. Do you recall reviewing Tracy Jacobs and Joel Mandel's depositions?
Yes,
All right. And do you recall them
Ashley
both
Hamill, thank
testifying
you.
that Mr. Depp had someone on salary to feed him his lines?
yes,
Okay. Now, you've testified that you reviewed a substantial amount of evidence in this case. Did you find any evidence that Amber Heard exhibited conduct or behaviors indicative or consistent with any of the risk factors for perpetrators of IPV?
Objection beyond the scope.
Sustained.
Well, it was suggested with the
I don't know,
borderline
Dennison. Let him
personality,
answer that. That's a no. That'll help his credibility.
But you
Rick
did
Cormier,
find
thank
that
you
for
very
Mr.
much
Depp,
for the generous
correct?
Super chat.
yes,
Okay. And did you find record evidence that Mr. Depp had a substance abuse disorder?
severe substance use disorder.
But
Did
you
any
said
of the
you didn't do
questions
that.
asked by Mr. Depp's counsel change any of your opinions in this case?
Nothing there, no, not my opinion has not been swayed an iota.
Okay. Do you hold them all still
Hold
within
up.
a reasonable
your
degree
opinion ever
of
get
medical
swayed?
and psychiatric probability or certainty?
Elizabeth
Absolutely,
Brewster,
yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Spiegel.
All
Your super
right.
chat.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
don't have
so
to
you
hear
can
from him
have a seat
anymore.
in the courtroom or you're free to go. All
God.
right, your next
Protocol
witness.
can absolutely make you.
My
false.
next witness is Catherine
Remember.
Arnold.
Catherine Arnold.
Okay.
How can it get any
Catherine
worse?
Arnold.
Let's introduce Catherine Arnold instead.
I have to say, we were really wrong. They had more witnesses that they wanted to put up. I do respect that they're all in the courtroom. I have to give them
Leland,
props.
do you have enough super chats to buy the rights to send in the clowns? I feel like that.
Send in the clown. Send in the clown.
I
Right.
think you just need some merch that says, I survived Dr.
Thank
Siegel's
you.
testimony.
Will you please state your name for the record?
Catherine Arnold.
And what is your profession?
I am a entertainment industry consultant, and I also serve as an expert witness.
Okay. And can
Oh,
you
boy,
please
here we
tell
go.
the jury your educational background?
Yes. So I've been in the entertainment industry for over 20 plus years. I started as an assistant at ICM, which is one of the largest talent agencies in Los Angeles that represents actors, writers, and directors. And I worked with the talent agent there. And then I also worked at William Morris, for William Morris as a script reader. So I was working on scripts that they were delivered and submitted to for their actors, writers, and directors. After that, I went into development of film and television projects for a company based in New York called the Maltese Company, which actually produced animated television shows and feature films based on Wall Street, animated product, like toys. And then I went to
Did
work
you say they were cartoons based on
with
Wall
a
Street?
company called the Goober Peters Company. And Goober
Cartoons
Peters
based on
was,
toys.
at the time, one of the largest production companies in Los Angeles. They did films like Batman and Rain Man and Tango and Cash. They did TV shows like Witches of Eastwick. And there I was involved in the development of scripts. We worked with the studio directly in terms of what cast would be attached to the scripts and,
That's a
and
few
brought
years ago.
directors and talent to those projects. I then went on to work in, there's a lot. I went on to work in the independent film world as a film producer. So I found the material, I would get the financing, I would get the cast and the director attached to the project. We call that packaging. And then we would go and obtain financing for that either through equity sources or international sales and financing and bank financing. And then I also went on after that. I produced 5 or 6 films with actors that you may know, including Salma Hayek, Vincent D'Onofrio, Kirstie Alley, Thomas Jane, Ethan Hawke. And then I worked with a international sales and production company where I was the head of production, and I worked again on the development of scripts and the procurement of financing. So I worked in both the independent world and the studio world, meaning independently financed or financed by the big studios like Warner Brothers and Disney and Paramount and such as that. That's the bulk of my work in the entertainment
Did
industry.
any of your films win awards?
A couple of them did. So a couple of the independent films that I produced, one of them won, called The Coriolis Effect, won the Venice Film Festival in its category. And then I also produced another film that won the Heartland Film Festival Award. It's called Crystal Award.
Right. And what other video production projects have you been involved in?
So throughout that time, in between those jobs, I also worked in the corporate world. So large studios like Warner Brothers and Disney and CBS would need corporate videos for their live events. So I would interview executives and interview their talent and then edit the piece together to create video and media for their live sales conferences that they had at that time. And then I also produced some commercials.
All right. And what, if any, experience did you have in corporate relations and licensing?
So early on in my career, I worked at the Los Angeles Olympic Organizing Committee, and I worked in the licensing department where we handled the licensing of the Olympic logo. And we also worked with sponsors and suppliers who were funding those Olympic Games. So it was a lot of contractual negotiations with the use of the license of the logo, as well as raising money for the games and working with those corporate sponsors throughout the 2 years prior to the games and then during the games themselves.
And what, if any, experience do you have working on film festivals?
Well, I've had films in festivals. I've actually been very lucky to travel the world and gone to a lot of festivals with my films, both here in the United States and elsewhere. And at one point, I was also hired to raise sponsorship funds for the Sundance Film Festival. They had a new program that they were starting to do online festivals. And so I raised about $500,000 for them in about a month.
All right. And do you have a degree, a college degree?
Yes, I graduated from UCLA with a bachelor's degree in economics.
What does your current consulting practice entail?
So as an entertainment consultant, having been in the business in both the independent and the studio worlds as both a producer and an executive, I work with investment companies and production companies who are looking to navigate the various inroads of Hollywood. It's a business is very different and unlike anything else and very relationship based. So I use my 20 years of experience to help them get cast, get financing, understand the distribution process, marketing process, and get them set up to be able to produce their films.
Have you ever testified as an expert witness in the field of entertainment industry?
Yes.
Okay. Approximately how many times have you served as an expert?
I've been involved in somewhere between 85 and 100 cases as an expert, from beginning stages to testifying in court.
And have you ever testified as an expert on damages and defamation cases?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And approximately how many times have you qualified as an expert on that?
On defamation?
Yes.
I believe 3 or 4 times.
Okay. And have you ever been admitted to testify as an expert on damages?
Yes.
Okay. And how many times have you qualified as an expert on damages?
Tea in Tennessee. Thank you.
Almost all my
Very
cases have
generous.
some form of damage, economic damage related to the case. So I would say in all of the cases that I've testified in, I've been qualified in damages.
Okay. Have you ever served as an expert for both? Have you served as an expert for both plaintiffs and defendants?
Yes, I have.
Okay. How much of your current practice involves consulting as opposed to serving as an expert witness?
So over the last 10 or 12 years, it's been about 50-50. So I spent half my time working as a consultant and the other half working with lawyers on their cases.
Your Honor, I'm going to move to qualify Catherine Arnold as an expert in the entertainment industry, standards and practices, and related economic damages.
All right. Any objection? All right. So moved.
Thank you. Now, you have a dual role here as an expert, correct?
Yes.
Now, you're going to be testifying with respect to Mr. Depp's challenges to or claims of damages, and you're also going to be testifying to Amber Heard's damages, correct?
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm going to start you with Mr. Depp's claims for damages.
Okay.
With respect to Mr. Depp's claim damages, on what subject have you been asked to offer your opinion?
So I was asked to assess any alleged damages that the op-ed piece in the Washington Post that Ms. Heard wrote, whether that have impacted his career in any way, particularly did he lose any income or any economic opportunities because of the op-ed piece specifically.
All right. And have you been asked to limit that to the period of December 18, 2018, with the date of the op-ed, through November 2, 2020?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what materials did you review in making your analysis?
There were a lot of documents. I reviewed the pleadings of the case, the complaints, the discovery items, the responses to what they call interrogatories, which are the questions that the lawyers ask both sides. I reviewed Mr. Depp's deposition testimony, which there were volumes of that, as well as Ms. Heard's. I also reviewed the deposition testimony of the experts that were proffered that had to do with the entertainment industry, the agents and the management teams of both sides. Ron Schnell, the data expert. I also reviewed emails and texts between the parties, between their families, between their management teams, the audio recordings, the visual recordings that have been presented in this case and the previous cases that have been involved in the last couple of years. I also did my own independent research from general publicity and press and investigative articles, as well as those that are specific to the entertainment industry, and utilize some entertainment industry specific sources to get some information that was helpful to my case, to the case.
Thank you, Ms. Arnold. Please describe for the jury your observations with respect to Mr. Depp's career trajectory.
Well, Mr. Depp has had an extraordinary career over many years, so it's a long one to look at. Obviously, he was a rising star in the late 80s and in the 90s, starting with 21 Jump Street, and you've heard, all the films that I'm sure he's been in. He really started to break through when he worked with Tim Burton, the director, and of course his character Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean was, world renowned. And probably his biggest role. And he was, a well-liked, both critically and within the industry and within the public as a movie star. And at the same time, his behavior and both on and off the set, in his personal life and in his professional life, start to interfere with what we would say, what everybody saw was his great talent. And it started, there's some stories of issues that started back in the 80s and the 90s, but I would say really in the mid 2000s, between 2006 and 10, is when the behavior started affecting his work to a certain extent in terms of lateness on set. And then as Ms. Jacobs, his talent agent, discussed with you in her deposition, it really started to affect her ability to get roles and the industry's willingness to work with him, given the issues that he was having with both behavior, tardiness, drinking, and the drug abuse, and other issues in his personal life. So it got more complicated for her to find him work, and I think it got harder for production companies and studios to hire him due to the challenges that would put on a production.
And when did Mr. Depp's career downturn begin, based on your review of all the record evidence?
Well, again, according to Ms. Jacobs, his agent, she mentioned that it started getting more challenging for her around 2010. The lateness on set she was being made aware of that more and more often from production executives and the producers that she was working with on the Pirates movie. And not only Pirates, it continued on the other films, including Mordecai and Murder on the Orient Express. And in around 2014, when he had the appearance, it was presumed that he was under the effects of alcohol at the Hollywood Film Awards in 2014.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
She's answering the career downturn. Your Honor.
Overruled.
Please continue.
Thank you. In 2014, when Mr. Depp appeared in the Hollywood Film Awards, Ms. Jacobs received many phone calls from both producers, casting directors, and production executives asking her what is going on with your client, why, what's going on with his behavior, can we get him under control? And then I think it really started to shift around the Pirates 5 movie in Australia with, again, the lateness and the issues with the finger that stopped production and things of that nature. And then it got harder and harder.
Now, based on your analysis, what has caused Mr. Depp's career downturn?
Objection. No foundation.
Overruled.
Can you please repeat the question?
Based on your analysis, what has caused Mr. Depp's career downturn?
Are you going to say his
I realize
lateness?
you've said a number of those, so just, is there anything else?
Sure. Well, we've talked about the erratic behavior, the tardiness, the drugs and alcohol abuse, and the lawsuits have had a really big impact, not just this lawsuit, but previous lawsuits that Mr. Depp has been involved with, because there's a lot of publicity around anything that he does. And every time he has filed a lawsuit, it has brought to light various issues with respect
I'm
to
not
whatever
certain
that
that's going to
lawsuit
play
was
the
about.
way that they want it
Whether
to.
it was about, erratic behavior or domestic abuse or drugs and alcohol and even spending habits. So every time a lawsuit has been filed, the press and the publicity has just been charged up and brought everything back to light. And it's been an unfortunate problem on that level for the industry to continue to work with him, even though all this is out in the public.
Doesn't that
For
sound
the
like Amber
films that
damaged him?
were shortly before
Yeah.
Pirates 5,
Because the lawsuits
how
are a result of
successful were they? We're talking Mordecai, Alice Through the Looking Glass. I think you
I
testified.
mean,
to
also
some
just
of those,
on
the-
like an
the Lone
empathy
Ranger,
level
Tonto.
by the jury. If,
Right.
if they
Objection
think that he's been
compound.
wronged, they're going to be like, what? So he's not allowed to file
Of course,
a
Mr.
lawsuit when
Depp
he's
has
been
had
wronged?
some extremely successful films, but also in the,
Yeah, this line only
4 or
works
5
if you
years
think he's
prior,
really
and through
just litigious
Pirates,
and
there
out
were
on a limb
films
with
that
this
didn't
case
do
that
well
you're
at all
looking at as
and
the
were
jury.
considered what the industry
Yeah.
calls a bomb, which could have been Alice Through the Looking Glass, The Transcendence, the Lone Ranger, and Mordecai were films that just didn't perform, although they were valued in their financing based on Mr. Depp's star quality and acting ability. Unfortunately, they just didn't perform. So as many hits as he's also had a lot of recent, what they call failures in the business.
And what, if anything, did Mr. Depp do with respect to showing up for a press conference in Japan for Mordecai?
Ms. Jacobs mentioned in her deposition testimony that Mr. Depp didn't show up for the press conference in Mordecai, which he was not only an actor for, he was also a producer, and he didn't show up. Apparently he was sleeping, so he wasn't able to make it.
Now, what, if any, impact did the Brooks litigation have on Mr. Depp's career?
Is the jury familiar with this already, or?
Well, I think you can,
Okay, so the Brooks litigation was, there was a litigation around Mr. Depp had punched someone on one of the, I think it was a location manager on the set
Allegedly,
of the film called City
maybe?
of Lies. I don't know exactly what happened to that litigation. However, of course, again, it was written a lot about in the press, and unfortunately came to the forefront that he had, violent behavior yet again.
So
Well,
in
you're not an expert on any of that.
2018, and I'm going to say before the op-ed on December 18, 2018,
Right.
was there any negative articles, negative press about Mr. Depp?
For quite a while, when you're a celebrity such as Mr. Depp, you're in the limelight and everybody wants to look at everything that happens. So after every movie or after every incident, there was usually press. But the ones that were more significant were the ones in the Hollywood, a couple of them in the Hollywood Reporter and one in the Rolling Stone. So in 2017, there was an article in the Hollywood Reporter where the journalist discussed, I think the article was called Pirates of the Caribbean, The Diminishing Returns of Johnny Depp. And that Pirates, the last one was 5, right? And that one didn't perform nearly as well as the other previous Pirates of the Caribbean films. And there was some discussion that the character.
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor.
I think you should explain generally.
Sustained.
Okay. Let me ask you this. When was that Hollywood Reporter article on diminishing returns of Johnny Depp?
That was in the spring of 2017.
Kurt.
Okay. And you said,
Don't talk like
and I
that.
just want to make sure we understand, how well did Pirates 5, and you said,
Don't talk like
and I
that.
just want to make sure we understand, how well did Pirates 5 do compared to 1 through 4?
It performed less well by over $200 million.
Okay.
It-
What, if any, other negative press was there in this time frame? We'll take 2017, 2018, before the op-ed.
So in 2018, there was the Rolling Stones article that was an in-depth expose on Mr. Depp's life. Again, his erratic behavior, the money he was spending on wine.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
I think she can give generally, Your Honor, the negative.
Sustained.
Thank you. Can't just
What,
bootstrap
if
that
any,
in.
knowledge do you have of whether Disney saw the Rolling Stone article?
There were emails between the publicity department and the co-chairs and some of the senior executive Disney that they would forward the articles as they came out, both the Hollywood Reporter article and the Rolling Stones article, and they would make commentary. And Alan Horn, who is the one of the co-chairs of Disney, used the word sad. And I think one of the other executives used depressing, that their film star was now being shown in this